Hello, everyone, and welcome to Entertainment Expansion. We are your hosts, Tyler Callahan and Mike Ferrante. Mike, how are you doing?
Well, Tyler, I am absolutely chilling. We actually have a very good TV show to talk about and something that you and I are pretty well versed in.
So we haven't had a lot of good movies the past few months, but hey, Last of Us came out, and what do you know? It only just became like the best video game adaptation ever, one of the best dramas ever. Yeah, HBO and PlayStation killed it. I guess we can just wrap it up now, right? That's basically it.
Yeah, we don't really need to give reasons for it.
It's
The
amazing. Go
fact that
watch it.
it's
Done.
the fact that it's the best video game adaptation ever made is a very low bar. I will say that.
But it is a bar.
But come future, if directors, producers do not look at this and say, okay, maybe we should stick to the fucking source material for once, they are retarded. Because look what happens. If it's a great game and you want to make it into a movie or a TV show, stick to the fucking source material and it will turn out fine.
I'm going to tell you this right now. You know who's reviewing their notes right now?
Not Resident Evil because they're going to continue to make shit.
No. I think after PlayStation saw what they did with HBO, I think they're gonna double check Netflix because they're doing the live action Horizon Zero Dawn show. They're gonna be like, yeah, you need to be like this, and they're gonna go stop by Amazon because they're doing the God of War live action TV show. So yeah, PlayStation will not be happy if only one of these three is a success. And Last of Us has set a very high bar.
Yes, it has. But if the other two do not do well, that just means PlayStation will be more likely to go back to HBO with any future projects. They'll
Hmm.
probably be
Yeah,
the first picks,
yeah. You pick whatever you want. We'll do it because clearly you know what you're doing. But let's stop
which
beating
isn't a
around the
bad
bush.
thing.
There is a lot here to discuss. We're not just saying it's good because we love the first game. It's not because we love the franchise. We'll get into it. I will preface before we talk, we are only talking full spoilers for the show and the first game. We are not saying anything about part two, what season two or three might be. We're just first game, first season. Mike, I'll kick it off with you. What made the show great? Why are we so overjoyed with it?
Well, I think we kind of started talking about it already, but the fact that it actually stayed true to the source material,
Mm,
because The Last of Us had an amazing story for a video game, by far one of the best, especially for the time that it came out, because this is an older game at this point. It was a PlayStation 3 exclusive, and it has now since come out on PlayStation 4 and 5.
to give you a hint on how old this game is, almost 10 years as of a few months, this game competed with the original GTA 5 for Game of the Year awards. Not the PS4
Yep.
version, not the PS5 version, the original.
Yes, and that being said, we got stellar performances from essentially the entire cast. Anybody that was in that show gave an outstanding performance. I cannot think of any one person who kind of phoned it in. Everyone kind of seemed to give it their all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, your boy Pedro Pascal, he's really killing it right now with these TV shows. Give him a sidekick that he needs to low key adopt, and he will run with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with you on any of this because I don't. I think one issue where a lot of video game adaptations fail is the source material is like we'll pick and choose what we want. No, the source material is beloved for a reason. If you can't understand that, don't make the show. Don't make the movie.
Correct.
Okay, there's a reason it sold millions of copies, has multiple sequels. There's all this merchandise that people love and buy. Kind of looking at you, Halo. But anyway, Last of Us, you're absolutely right. Even when the first game came out, back in the PS3 era, it was at its time one of the best stories told in the video game medium. I also think it does help that it's basically a 12-hour movie,
Yes.
right? With the third person, the amazing cutscenes. I will say The Last of Us lends itself to being adapted easier. Than say like Skyrim, you know?
Yes.
It's not like they picked the hardest game to adapt into a tangible story. This was basically, a hardcore drama Hollywood production, but as a video game. But it's not just that. It's like, yeah, not only I would say it stuck to the source material, where they made some changes, the changes actually worked.
Yes, they did.
Specifically, I'm going to talk about, really the only main change is episode 3 with Bill. And basically, they turned that on its head into basically a self-contained love story, but also that love story serves the narrative for Pedro Pascal, for Joel, the character, into what he will do down the road later in the season. So it's not just they changed it for the sake of we want a gay love story. It's like, no, these things matter to the overall story, and that's what makes it so good. How many shows have you watched where like there's a plot thread that just kind of goes nowhere? It's just there for the sake of it.
A lot of them.
This is a show that has no fat.
Correct. There's no filler. Every episode has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And even with that change, let's talk about episode 3, right? Critically and rating wise, it is the lowest rated episode in the entire show, which, let's call it what it is. It got review bombed because it's basically an entire episode about gay romance, right?
Yeah.
Listen, take that away. You have amazing acting, again, from both of the leads of that episode, right? And it felt like a believable relationship and a partnership throughout the entire episode, which, how rare is that? Take the gay factor out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Leave your uncomfortability aside. Watch the episode, and you will see that is what acting is about.
We got an entire love story that takes place over 15 years, basically, condensed into an hour. It was believable, and you're bought into it.
Yes.
Not many shows can do that.
No, not many movies can do that.
Exactly.
With a longer runtime. So that's my stance on that. Grow up.
But I think overall, the changes they made, they fit to serve the story, and even other changes were like, it doesn't matter as much, but it's like the events are still impactful. So like, Sam is he's deaf, right? Sam's deaf.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's deaf. So it's a little different, but the main events still happen, and it's still just as impactful when it happens.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It doesn't make seeing that kill suicide in live action any better.
Ooh.
Just because he's deaf.
No, it does not.
It doesn't matter.
No, it does not.
In fact, I would even go so far as say there are a few things the show did better. Mainly David.
Yeah.
The creep factor went up to 11 with the live action, dude.
Oh, my God, yeah. And you didn't even see as much as obviously in the game, because the game you have more freedom to kind of roam around and you are the teller of the story. This, they had to give you the basic plot points.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta respect the fact that it didn't come outright and this was just a fully cannibalistic village. Everybody in the village was a known cannibal and they're all hostile. That wasn't
well, some of them didn't, like the kids didn't know they were cannibals.
The kids and some of the adults either.
Yeah, only a few knew they were cannibals. But yeah, they're basically all cannibals, whether they wanted to or not.
Correct. So I think that was an interesting aspect of it, because it kind of de-demifies? Yeah, sure, why not?
Dehumifies them, yeah.
No, because they were kind of demonized in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That entire kind of complex of people were all monsters. The show made it not seem as much like that.
Well, yeah, with the girl being basically backslapped, abused by David, makes you think, she's probably being sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Right? As David says, you still have a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even just the small details. That, like you said, like in the game, they were demonized. Like when you see the group here, I think one thing that stood out for me is he gets back, with his right-hand man, bring the deer and all that. He gets the biggest plate of that girl's father, all that meat. and everyone is scraping the 2 or 3 pieces with soup they got. Like it's stuff like that. Like he's the leader, and like no one's willing to like stop him. They just take it.
Correct.
They're just scraping the bowls of what they have for dinner. Meanwhile, he's eating, 10, 15 pieces of meat. It's the girl's father. The mother's just sitting there doing nothing. It's like just from that like 5 minute scene with no arguing, no nothing, you see the dynamic of that group, and it's not a healthy one.
No, it is not. He leads that group by fear, and it's an interesting type of fear because not once does he really raise his voice. He's
Nope.
kind of like that silent scary. Like when he goes quiet, that's when it gets very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So continuing on to that episode, they did change it a little bit. So Joel does not take Ellie away and stop her from kind of going to town on David's face.
Which I liked.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They still had that shell shocked moment where
Yeah.
she doesn't realize it's him right away, and it still takes her a second to be like, "Oh shit, I'm safe now." And then you also saw that relief on her face too, and also
Mhm.
Joel's face when he saw that she was okay.
Okay, in quotes, basically after what she went through. But yes, I get what you're saying.
Alive and
Yeah,
relatively unharmed.
alive.
Let's scale it back a little bit because I do want to bring one thing up about episode one actually.
Sure.
So they did an amazing job recreating the beginning of Last of Us. But
Yes.
I will say, I feel like the game's ending of episode one, if you will, where Joel's daughter dies, felt a little bit more impactful. Maybe because first time playing it, it was a shock. You weren't expecting it, I guess. Having played
Yeah.
the game
I
and
think we might be a bit biased
recently
because we
too,
had that shock once.
yeah, that was a big
Like
shock.
it's a big shock because like, oh, you think, all right, you're gonna age, 15, 20 years. She might be a main character down the road. It's like, nope, that
Yeah, but I feel like the voice acting for that was fucking unreal too. Like
yeah,
I can't even describe it in words. You
it's
gotta
heartbreaking.
if you're listening, either play the beginning or watch a clip on YouTube because the voice acting that is unreal and it is heartbreaking to watch and kind of listen to. But other than that, that's really the only thing I think the game really kind of went beyond the show. Everything was really close, or the show kind of took it to another level.
Yeah. I would say main difference from the game to show that I think was a little bit noticeable, but I think that's a medium thing is that there was a lot less infected.
Yes,
But when they showed up, shit got real.
it did. When that horde showed up, oh yeah, and the bloater.
And yeah, the bloater just doing the death animations from the games. Like, all right.
All right, I see you. Once again, very close to source material.
It's done well. But I mean, look, amazing acting, top to bottom from everyone. I think they picked. I know for some reason people were like, "Well, I don't know if Bella Ramsey can be a good Ellie. She doesn't look like her." Well, that doesn't really matter. Number one, number two. By the second episode, her mannerisms were so close to Ellie, I was getting confused.
Because she was the character.
Yeah, like it's not even like just the stuff she says, just how she said it was like, oh my god, this is fucking like this is Ellie from the game.
Yes.
Like this is Ellie from the game. This is not like someone pretending to be, the voice actress of Ellie's. Like, no, this is Ellie, and it works. And then obviously, I mean, Pedro. Well, I mean, what else do you need to say? Like,
Yeah.
killed it. If he doesn't get the Emmy next year, I don't know.
Don't worry, he'll get it from
If they both
Mandalorian
don't get
season.
Emmys, I don't get it.
Yeah. There's. I'm curious to see how many Emmys that this show gets nominated for, and walks home with.
I think one thing that I think we should talk about in regards to specific events, is one of the most biggest scenes in the
Yep.
franchise. At the end,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm talking about the hospital shootout. It is a bit different because in the
It
game,
comes.
you're shooting, you are the person shooting, so it's more like heroic. You gotta save Ellie, you gotta get her. Fuck the Fireflies. But in the show, it's a lot more somber.
Yes. So also one thing to point out Obviously, in the game, it was much longer. There was different floors of the hospital you were going through, and kind of waves of enemies, if you will. The show made it a little bit more realistic, and also, I feel like it put you in the mindset of Joel better than the game did
Definitely.
because it
The
got to a
faded
point.
score,
Yep,
everything. Yeah.
the faded sound of everything else. Because in his mentality was he needs to get to Ellie. He needs to make sure Ellie's okay. Everything else is just white noise. The entire world is muffled except for that one goal. And that's what we heard and that's what we saw.
And I would say not even just the sound, the lack of emotion as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Like there was no screaming, no cursing. Even when he stops, pulls out the switchblade, and goes to town stabbing that dude, there's no emotion on his face, nothing. He's expressionless as he goes on a killing spree. He's so focused on just getting to Ellie. And meanwhile, compare that to say episode 8 with David's men, that the nice interrogation scene. Even though he's a bit drugged out, I noticed when he brought out the switchblade with the guy tied in a chair, he had a little small smile, like he was enjoying this and trying to get information to save Ellie. But in the hospital, no emotion, just kill who you got to kill.
Yep. You don't want to tell me the answer? I don't have time for this. I'll find her anyway. Don't you worry. But it also goes into further of Joel's kind of thought process without even saying it.
Yep.
He was very closed off, kind of like in the game as well, and the show did a great job of this. He was closed off to forming new relationships, especially with children, because he lost his own daughter and became very callous and hateful because of that, understandably. But with Ellie getting into the picture, he then started kind of getting a surrogate daughter and loving her like his daughter. And he wanted to do anything he could to prevent his new daughter from facing the same fate as his first daughter, essentially.
And I think you would agree with me on this. The ending scene, they nailed perfectly.
Oh yeah,
that was one. I thought the show was going to do good. I didn't know it'd be this amazing, but I thought overall the show would be good. I was worried if they would change the ending because when you play the game, right, you're playing that for 12 hours, you get to that ending. Okay, cut the black. It's like, what did you just play? What just happened? So I'm glad they recreated it. That's perfect ending. Don't change it.
I agree.
Because now what's everyone doing online this week? They're discussing the ending, right? We have a lot of people watching the show for the first time. They have never heard of the game, never played it. And now they're discussing, did Joel do the right thing? Did he do the wrong thing? I mean, as a parent, do you understand what he did? Like, that's what the game ending did all those years ago. And people are having the exact same discussion now. I think that's what makes it so impactful. You can talk about it for hours.
Yes.
Like, could they even make a vaccine? What if they fuck up the vaccine? Ellie died for nothing. Cool, they make the vaccine. Do you trust the Fireflies restoring order to the world? This group? I mean,
yep. There's a lot of moral complications when it comes to, did Joel do the right thing or did he not?
We're also, I realize Fireflies are kind of fucking incompetent, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even talking like fighting Joel. Like Marlene at the beginning of the episode gives baby Ellie to the soldier, and he's like, "Cover her ears." There was no covering of those ears when she shot Ellie's mom.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I mean, if you can't even listen to basic instructions like that, I mean, I don't trust you restoring the world.
Yeah.
It really sucks. We're gonna have to wait like almost 2 years for next season, but hey, they take all the time they need to get this right.
Yes, they do.
Do you have any complaints about the show?
Not really, man. This was an A-tier show for essentially all the reasons we've already discussed.
Yeah.
There's really not many negatives to talk about with this. Yeah.
I mean,
what about you?
For me, I would have liked maybe an infection scene or two thrown in. Now, obviously, we're coming from the mind of we played the game completely. Obviously, because it's a video game, you're going to have more shooting scenes or more stealth scenes. And obviously, there's no point putting hours of that into the show. I get it. But I see some complaints online, and I kind of think they have a valid point of like, you make such a big deal about the infected and the need for the vaccine. Yet, for the most part, the infected don't seem to be an issue. It's the other humans, which obviously that's part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like okay, in Kansas City, all right, well, because that group was fucking competent and based on revenge. The bloater got out and all that stuff happened. So it's like, I just felt like there were smaller, intimate scenes of like where Joel and Ellie gotta get through a building out of infect. There was just something like that to show like, hey, look, the vaccine's still important to a degree if it can be done. But that is a very small complaint. Overall, I love the show. It is everything I wanted it to be and more.
I couldn't agree more.
So it's a yes for me. Go watch it. You don't need to play the game to watch this to enjoy it. By itself, it is a great drama.
You know what? I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
I'm just waiting for you to correct yourself.
Instead of fucking lunatic, no, fully agree. Go watch the show. It's definitely a huge recommendation for me. One of the best TV shows, obviously, of the year so far, and will probably stay that way. But as always, these are only our thoughts about The Last of Us and how it compared to the original source material. We want to know your thoughts. Did you watch the show? Did you play the game? What were your thoughts on the two? Did it live up to expectations? Or are you wrong and it let you down a little bit? As always, feel free to let us know at Entertainment Expansion. Check us out at Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you for listening.